Hi Llama lovers, I'm Tomi Llama. Thank you for joining me for this deeper dive into the Know Yourself part of the system. If this is the first video you've watched with us, let me offer you a little bit of landscape on the Superpower System. There are 3 parts to it: Know Yourself, Grow Yourself, Clear Yourself. The website is a journey through each of those 3 parts of the system. And the website lets you either do sort of a skimming of that, or you can do a deeper dive into each part of the Superpower System. This video is the deeper dive into the Know Yourself part of the system. And what does that deeper dive look like? The deeper dive is about how did I get to know yourself. The essence of Know Yourself is explained in another video. It's actually what we call the Superpower model. And has a worksheet that goes along with it. We've briefed that in another video. This is actually about how did I come to establish that part of the system needed to be know yourself. I remember the exact moment that happened. It was 1998. My father had just passed away from colon cancer. I'm at dinner with my mother, and for a while I'd had this hollowness and this deep feeling of there's something I'm supposed to be doing. And at dinner with my mother that night, I gave voice to that, and I said, "Mom, I'm supposed to be doing something. I don't know what it is." And she said, "Well, that's interesting. Your father said the same thing." And I said, "Really? When?" And she said, "Right up until he died." That moment was a defining moment in my life. How do I know that? Because the moment she said that, I dropped down into this dark place of how do you get to 65 and not know you've lived your purpose? That was how old my father was when he passed away. I don't want to get to 65 and not know my purpose. I don't want my children to get to 65 and not know their purpose. Right? So I was just in a tailspin. And you know, the negative self-talk can take us to the edge, sometimes drop us over. And that's where I was, in this deep, dark place of, I've got to find my purpose. I need to know who I am, right? So I was shouting out to the universe all of these, life's most compelling questions. I need the answers. And I think when you do that sometimes, especially out of desperation, the universe will respond. So I had 2 things happen in response to that. As I met friends, crossed paths with friends, shortly after that, they would say, "Hey, what are you up to?" And I'd be like, "I'm working on finding my purpose, going to workshops, reading books." And they're like, "Can you help me with mine?" And I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm lost. I don't need to be helping anybody. Maybe when I find my purpose, I might be able to help you, but for the moment, I'm absolutely lost. That was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened is the universe gave me a gift, one that I could not miss, because first of all, I'm a learner. So I love to read, so the universe delivered a book. I love leadership and sports, and so the universe delivered not only a book about leadership, but a book about leadership and sports. And it was a book about Vince Lombardi. If you're not familiar with Vince Lombardi, and if you don't care for sports analogies, that's okay. You can just reflect on his greatness and let it rest at that. But the trophy that's given at the end of the Super Bowl, whoever wins the Super Bowl gets the Vince Lombardi trophy. Now, Vince was a master at extracting all of his potential and extracting all of the best out of others. I'm going to read you a little bit about his record. I'm going to read it because I don't want to mess it up. I want to get it right. So Vince coached 10 seasons in the NFL, 9 with the Green Bay Packers and 1 with the Washington Redskins. He had a record of 105 wins, 35 losses, and 6 ties. Included in that record is winning 5 of the 6, what they used to call world championships, or what we now call the Super Bowl. So he won the first 5 out of 6 of those, which is remarkable. And his postseason record of 9 victories and 1 loss is unrivaled in professional football. So he knew how to get the best out of people. And he also said 2 things in his book that really spoke to me. I'm going to read you the first quote. "Leadership begins with self-knowledge. Life decisions can be good decisions only if they hit your own personal bedrock." Right? So I'm reading this and I'm like, I don't even know what a personal bedrock is. And then he says, "You can't improve on something you don't understand." Okay, well, I certainly don't understand myself, so I certainly don't know how to improve myself. So as I read his book, I realized, okay, I've got to find self-knowledge. What does self-knowledge look like? I'm going to go out in the world, and actually I call it 20 years in the desert. That's What's Your Superpower? The book is premised on my 20 years out there in the world trying to answer life's most compelling questions. And so I'm out there and I'm like, okay, I'm going to look for themes. I'm going to try to see what I see over and over and over, and maybe that's something important and I should pay attention to. So the first theme that kept coming to me through books and workshops is values-based leadership, values-based decision-making, a values-based life. And what I discovered out of that is that a values-based life is one in which you live from the deepest parts of who you are. You discover the top 5 values that really represent the complexity of who you are, and you live aligned with those. So that's the first piece of the superpower model, is those top 5 values, right? And that allowed me to see who I am on the inside, what I deeply care about. So I actually wrote a book, I think it came out in 2008 or 2007, somewhere along there, called The 5 Keys to the Great Life, that talked about this values-based life. So that was the first piece, and I transferred that over into What's Your Superpower, because it is a very important piece in understanding and gaining that self-knowledge, right? Knowing those top 5 values and what you care deeply and most deeply about. And then I thought, okay, that'll be the first piece. What's next? And then across my path came the Strengths Finder, the Clifton Strengths Finder. It's also, you can use the high 5 test, but what those assessments do is provide you feedback on your top 5 strengths. So I know who I am at the core deeply with these top 5 values, and then with the strengths I discovered what I'm really good at, right? And I brought those together. 5 values, what I deeply care about. 5 strengths, what I'm really good at. And I realized at the intersection of those, and if you're talking about concentric circles, you get an almond, right? That's the sweet spot in the center. And in that sweet spot are your social currencies. Those are the 3 things that you stand, that come together in your values and your strengths. It's the energy you exchange with others. It's what you bring to your relationships. It's what others bring into the relationship. And in that almond, in that social currencies is, and I'm a goober, I'm not going to be very good at this, I'm trying to make a heart, right? Inside of that is a heart, right? And that's your heart. And inside that heart is the one thing that you do so uniquely, like no one else in the world, and that's the superpower. So I used this journey of 20 years in the desert to figure out, how do I know myself so I can improve upon it? And that's deeply rooted in the work of Vince Lombardi and his book, right? And so this know yourself piece is about this self-knowledge, growing it, right? Making decisions aligned with that. And how do we grow more deeply into that is the grow yourself piece of the superpower system. So, all right, so that's the story behind Know Yourself. It came out of me trying to get to my personal bedrock so I could grow from there. And I also wanted to understand who I am uniquely, right? Your uniqueness is your superpower. My uniqueness is my superpower. All right, thanks for sitting here with me and sharing this time. If you have questions, let us know. We're always happy to help. And remember, your cape awaits.